Hello, I'm Dr. Catherine Horton. Today is the 26th of June 2017, and this is another SOS appeal to anybody who's out there and who has any sort of power to actually help. I am in Zurich. I'm being mutilated by the Swiss intelligence agency, NDB, run by Markus Seiler. I am being mutilated on the authorization of Markus Seiler. I have been to the High Court in London and I tried to get an emergency injunction against the intelligence agencies. But it's all to no avail. I've appealed to the German ambassador, as I'm a German citizen, but the ambassador is entirely collaborating with this Nazi system, and he refuses to help. And that, by the way, is typical for ambassadors. I've known of a case in Belgium where a German lady appealed to the German ambassador when she was being attacked with electromagnetic weapons, and the German ambassador to Belgium also refused all assistance. So this is a Nazi extermination program, and the ambassadors know that people are placed on them, and they just watch them die, which makes them traitors to their country. So according to that measure, I would say that Dr. Otto Lampe, the German ambassador to Switzerland, is a traitor. He is a traitor, and he should be treated like a traitor. He has to be removed as quickly as possible. But anyway, today is an absolute emergency broadcast. It's very late. It's 1:30 a.m. in the morning. I've been working flat out today to prepare stuff for next week, as I'm trying to help myself and also the 4 other women that I work with who are all being mutilated to death by the intelligence agencies. If you are new to this broadcast and don't know what the hell this is about, this is about electromagnetic weapons, microwave weapons. Those are weapons that have the power of your microwave, but you can focus it at people. And they have the unpleasant property that microwaves pass through brick and concrete at 50% intensity. So if you double the intensity, you can microwave somebody inside their own home. So the military-industrial complex has developed that into weapons, pulsed weapons with which you can fire a shot at a building and give people organ damage, a heart attack, or brain damage inside. This system has been around for decades, but is now being put into a massive weapon system. This weapon system is being calibrated on mostly women. 70 to 80% of the victims of the intelligence agencies are women. And what the intelligence agencies seem to be doing is take these women and mutilate them, literally shred them to death, for the calibration of this weapon system, for the training of the young degenerates, and also for the sexual entertainment of the perverts and sadistic, psychopathic serial killers in their own employment and also their associates. So that's the story. Meanwhile, I'm a high-energy physicist turned systems analyst who is trying to understand what's going on. I spent 5 years, well, more than that, 6 years by now, analyzing complex human systems, trying to make sense of horrific large-scale crimes committed on the financial markets, the crash of our economies, and now I'm desperately fighting for my life and trying to figure out what's going on with our intelligence agencies. The bottom line is that they're in deep capture, and they are run by serial killers. They are run by psychopathic serial killers who have been placed there by an internal cartel. The cartel has been identified in 2011 by a group of Swiss mathematicians and systems analysts. They call it the Network of Global Corporate Control. There's a paper you can find about that topic. But it seems to be that this network of global corporate control has put our intelligence agencies into deep capture, has on purpose promoted degenerates and warped people, perverts and psychopaths into the higher echelons of our governments, into our police for sure, and certainly into the intelligence agencies. And these psychopaths have been let loose again on Western society for systematic takedown operation. Okay, so that's the big picture. The details are that women are being, and not just women, but mostly women, and a lot of children are being systematically mutilated to death. And the entire judiciary and the entire so-called law enforcement are just watching. So the only thing that we're down to is individuals' efforts to try to put together an investigation, find the criminals, and somehow have them shut down. I'm working for a group of in a group of 5 women, including an intelligence analyst, and NSA whistleblower Karen Melton Stewart, and we're trying to have the system shut down. Meanwhile, I'm being mutilated to death by high-intensity microwave shots to my head non-stop. The only thing that blocks microwaves is metal, which is why my room is surrounded in metal, and also I have to have individual pieces of metal to put on my joints. With this, I try to protect my heart. I have to have also, sometimes my thyroid is being shot at, so I have to protect my thyroid, and also I have to wear a helmet most of the time to protect my head. I have put up films on what it sounds like and looks like when these high-intensity shots are fired out of these electromagnetic machine guns. At night, they just turn them on and shoot into me all night long, basically. It might sound insane to you, but if you don't believe me, you can look up the death of Britta Leah Jacquard, who has been mutilated to death and then publicly executed by German intelligence in Bavaria. You can look up the death of Dr. Ronnie Kilder, the ex-chief medical officer of Finland, who has been tortured for 20 years and then was publicly executed by Norwegian intelligence. You can look up the death of Dareem Daoud, who was tortured with microwave weapons and then publicly executed by British intelligence, and so on and so on and so on. The situation is we've no idea how to stop these psychopathic Nazis and the intelligence agencies. They are literally taking the best and brightest in our societies and they are mutilating them and murdering them. And meanwhile, they are jeering at the victims. They are sending fake emails, jeering about the physical degradation of the victims. And then they are laughing in the face of victims as they are dying. So that's the situation. As I said, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the global TI, that's targeted individuals. So the global victim survey run by the technical leaders, ex-technical leaders of the National Security Agency in the US. That's William Binney and Kirk Wiebe. They are running currently an effort to try to find the victims and find out what's happening to them and what is being done to them, and find the actual technology that's being used on them in a scientific manner as quickly as possible. There are other efforts to have these Nazis shut down, but we do not get any support. Lawyers stonewall and refuse to take victim cases. Doctors do not just not help, they actively implant victims with microchips. We have found absolutely just endless reports and also evidence for people being implanted. I'm implanted myself. I've got a chip on the top of my head and my neck, in my ears, like many other people. There's a specific pattern to how victims are implanted, to form a body area network, to degrade them and to torture them even quicker. So that's the situation. And I am so exhausted. I can't tell you how exhausted I am. I'm sorry. I also look like a mess because all day long I had to sit here trying to protect my head. My office is already entirely shielded because it has to be. There's aluminium shielding behind the bookcases. Yeah, that's what my study looks like. It's a huge office and it's actually beautiful if I wouldn't have to bunker down to protect myself from the psychopathic Nazis run by Markus Seiler. Weeks ago, I asked for cease and desist at the military HQ in Bern, and I spoke to a senior officer of the NDB. Apart from mock me and just jeer, he didn't actually do a fat lot. So, but the NDB knows about my case and the NDB refuses to stop the mutilation. By the way, I do not know of a single case where the intelligence agencies stopped the mutilation. Once you get onto their blacklists, these Nazi degenerate psychopaths torture people to death. They literally torture them to death. We know who's doing it. We know who the heads of the intelligence agencies are, and we know who's authorizing this. My mutilation has been authorized by Andrew Parker for MI5. That's my mutilation in Britain. Gerhard Schindler, and previously, and then Dr. Bruno Kahl after him now, currently, for the BND, that's German intelligence, and Markus Seiler for the NDB in Switzerland. So these three Nazis are responsible for my mutilation. I have also, from what I've seen, I've got the impression that, well, first of all, it's public knowledge that most of the victims are women. But also my impression is that most of the women are ethnic minorities, foreigners like myself, and they are being mutilated to death, literally by a horde of people obsessed with eugenics. If you don't believe me, just take some previous head of MI5, MI6, and type in eugenics into a search engine, or Satanism, or pedophilia, or murder, and you will get there. You will find plenty of reports, and now I'm so exhausted. Next week there will be some big appeals coming. We are appealing for help, especially most urgently the case of Dr. Millicent Black in Tennessee, who was being mutilated to death by the Air Force, by a serial killer in the Air Force, who was acting on authorization by the Air Force and is running large-scale mutilation and degradation in a community in Tennessee. I'm also appealing urgently for help for my colleague Melanie Richan, who is being mutilated. She's pregnant. She's 5 months pregnant, and she almost lost her child just 2 weeks ago in attacks, and she's being mutilated on orders of Jacques Reis, the head of intelligence in Belgium. I'm also appealing for help for my colleague Karen Melton Stewart, who's being mutilated to death on orders of the NSA. She is living in the US, and my colleague Ramola D, the investigative journalist, who is being mutilated to death on the orders of the local fusion center, and I think the FBI or whoever's responsible, and also the Air Force in her case. That's the situation. So we have 5 women who are of the highest integrity, and we are being shot to pieces right now. I'm being shot into, I'm not sure if this frequency can be shown. This is being fired into my breasts. This is extremely painful. Extremely painful. These are not normal signals. And so basically there are little gaps in the aluminium shielding, and it's extremely expensive to just seal it tightly. And it's just impossible. On the ground floor, I can't actually seal. So there are ways to shoot through diagonally, and I just didn't have time to actually bunker my room. But in the meantime, Swiss intelligence is using any opportunity to fire into me. I have already survived several assassination attempts here in Switzerland. After the first one, a huge life-size black plastic satanic goat appeared on a flat roof opposite my home in a really prominent place, which can be seen from pretty much anywhere in my home. On the floor below the satanic goat, there seems to be a training hub for young degenerates in the intelligence agencies. So young people, mostly early 20s, late teens, are just going to that flat non-stop, all hours of the day, and the lights are on 24/7. I never see the same person twice, really. So that seems to be just on the other side of my study, and certainly that's where they congregate. They have flats around where I live where they congregate, these Nazis, and when I leave the house, they kind of swarm in the organized stalking pattern. That the organized stalking is just the human intelligence, the surveillance, national surveillance networks of the intelligence agencies. So they swarm. I'm being attacked. I've also got a wound on my leg where I was shot into as I just left the house. It was literally something like 50 meters outside my home as I was going shopping just a day ago. Today, they have been vibrating my feet nonstop. I'm not sure if I can actually show you the frequency. this. Oh, hang on. I'll try to show you on my feeds. There's just. Can you hear that? So that is being fired. Sorry, I just want to show you what's happening live, because basically the intelligence agencies amuse themselves. So I'm sitting here barefoot because it's boiling hot here in Zurich. It's really absolutely cooking, and the aluminium around doesn't help either. But what they did is they shoot into me, and they sometimes turn up certain frequencies whereby they just hammer your tissue, and they hammer your tissue for hours and hours and hours until your limbs swell up. And they have been hammering my legs. Really, you can feel that your skin is burning and your tissue is being damaged, and you just feel raw and sore. And they do that for hours until the tissue just swells up in inflammation. So my right foot is just so inflamed. I made an evidence picture that I will upload tomorrow. But they are just trying to put as much tissue damage as they possibly can into people. That is how psychopathically, degenerately criminal Markus Seiler's organization is. They are terminally fucked clean in the head, which, if you know anything about current affairs and geopolitics, might not come as a surprise, given that the biggest criminal investigation in history right now is that of the pedophile networks and the human trafficking of children. So to any systems analyst, it becomes clear that our entire government architecture is based on the upper echelons on people being hooked on kiddie fucking. So we have these ruthless, serial killing, child fucking degenerates, as it seems, everywhere in government, and the intelligence agency seem to be instrumental in organizing the pedophile rings and procuring the supply of children for degenerates to mutilate. So by the time you get to the head of intelligence, these people are they are beyond anything that we know from normal serial killers. These people are so degenerate that they cannot be repaired. And what the victims are seeing is essentially that no amount of public appeals to cease and desist can make these fucking degenerate men stop. I think they must have been reared on pedophilia, they must have been sodomized and traumatized as children, and they must have been monarch programmed, and also probably had drugs tested on them. By the time you're put through this program, if there's any trace left of your brain, you're doing well. But I don't think there is with these guys. I think they are just terminally fucked clean in the head. So anyway, that's the situation. Meanwhile, so all the people who've written me emails, I get so many desperate pleas from victims. I'm sorry, I can't answer all the requests. My team and I, we're trying to put out stuff that tries to help everybody as quickly as possible. And I've been just working all day on that. It's extremely hard when you're being mutilated, and I just didn't have a proper holiday where I wasn't mutilated for over a year and a half. So that's why. And also, if you look carefully, I'm not wearing makeup, so you can see all the damage to my skin. You can see the shots being fired, and that happens sometimes during the day, sometimes at night. Also, I'm being shot in the face. So if I try to cover my head, I'm being shot in the face. So everywhere else, you can also see damage here. Here, you can see discolorations. Hang on. There, where I've got pigment changes from the microwave guns being fired into my face. And all this, I'm sorry, I'm so tired. I can barely think straight. All this is being done by these men who are running around in suits pretending to be normal. They are not normal. They are serial killers. They are demented, degenerate serial killers. And the victim cases make that clear. So anyway, as I said, this is the situation. Also, I've heard from Frédéric Laroche in France. He's being poisoned. Oh, by the way, that massive spark, I'm not sure if you heard, that was actually a shot being fired off a bit of shielding I have in the ceiling. So I'm not sure if the camera actually detected that, but those are the shots being fired, and sometimes they actually bounce off bits of shielding before they hit me. So Frédéric Laroche is being poisoned in France. He contacted the Swiss Parliament to inform them about the crimes committed against him. A week later, he was the victim of a malicious entrapment operation by French intelligence. As it seems, the police officer Yannick Plassiard seemed to have been instrumental in his the entrapment, and the man who's organizing this seems to be hang on, my phone isn't here. I will publish the details of the man. It seems to be the Préfet de l'Isère who is behind this, according to Frédéric Laroche. Also, there seems to be a psychiatrist called Dr. Bigochy, who seems to be instrumental in his poisoning. As it seems, also Dr. Bigochy tried to force Frédéric Laroche. So he was in an entrapment operation, and then he was sectioned. So the police arrested him, and after 24 hours, he was sectioned and put into psychiatric hospital. Given how slow and inefficient the police is everywhere, also in France, isn't it amazing that they do this real fast? Well, Frédéric Laroche was poisoned with some drugs the first time he was in a psychiatric hospital. They paralyzed his breathing for a day. He could barely breathe. Then they pumped him full with some drugs. He's perfectly healthy, but they pumped him full. Then they made it conditional for his release that he agrees to be injected every month with an insane compound, some sort of drug. He was forced into these injections. He's been injected now, and that is poisoning him. He said these injections have given him hallucinations. They literally are degrading him. He was perfectly fine beforehand, and now with these drugs, they are trying to just utterly take him to pieces. Also, interestingly, the Dr. Bigochy was forcing him to admit that he shouldn't contact me, and she said, "Oh, the background of aluminium makes her look silly, doesn't it?" Well, what Dr. Bigochy, because she is in a pseudoscience called psychiatry, what she doesn't know, because hasn't studied the hard science, which is what I've done, having a PhD in high energy physics and having been a high energy physicist at CERN, what this frankly stupid woman doesn't understand is that metal blocks electromagnetic waves. Yes, Dr. Bigochy, I can demonstrate if I actually pull this away. You should be able to see the radiation jump up. Hang on, maybe I might even be able to demonstrate it. Or I can show you. I can show all those doubters with an actual high energy device. If you give me a moment. Okay, so this is a standard measuring device as it's used by many people who come to people's homes to measure. Okay, I can turn it up. You can hear the radiation. The units are in microwatts per square meter. And the radiation here right now, by the way, this doesn't measure all frequencies. It just measures 800 megahertz to 2.7 gigahertz. And I'm being assaulted with, frequencies outside. But otherwise, the radiation level in this room is very, very low in this frequency band. However, if I stick this through a gap in the hole, this should start rising. Interestingly, sorry, you can't see. Interestingly, it's not rising as much as usual. Oh, here. Can you see? Sorry, you have to wait for the beam. Okay, I'm actually surprised because a month ago, before I shielded myself, okay, you can still see there's something like 68. So a month ago, a professional guy came to my home, and without the shielding, there was radiation on this wall that was over 2,000 microwatts per square meter. And I'm submitting a video of this guy to the Attorney General, showing him, saying he's never seen anything like that before. Anyway, you can just about see the effect. I've got something like 13, 14, 16. If I reach through behind the shielding, it goes up to, well, it seems to oscillate, but it starts going up to 50 and so on. So it looks almost like they have switched off the irradiation device because there's no point behind me. But you can do this yourself. You can take a piece of aluminium and you can wrap this thing, and you can then show that the radiation level goes down, and that's because metal, like aluminium, is reflecting electromagnetic waves. So this stupid woman, Dr. Bigoshi, doesn't understand jack shit about physics. But anyway, she was trying to force Frederic Laroche into admitting that he shouldn't contact me or the joint investigation team because I look silly with the aluminium. Okay, anyway, that woman needs to see a psychiatrist, or rather, she needs to see a physics teacher, a grade 7 physics teacher. But anyway, that's the shit we're dealing with. So anyway, we're also dealing with the entrapment operation, on Frederic Laroche. A lot of people seem to have been involved, as I said, according to Frederic. The Préfet de l'Isère seemed to have triggered the whole thing. The police officer Yannick Placiard seemed to have staged or helped the sectioning of Frederic Laroche, and Dr. Bigoshi is this absolutely either uneducated or totally corrupt psychiatrist who's just pumping Frederic Laroche full of drugs he doesn't need. And they have paralyzed his breathing already. They are now giving him hallucinations with fuck knows what shit they put into people. These people in psychiatry are not normal. They need to be sectioned. They need to be sectioned. They are not scientists. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And they're going against the very first clause of what's it called? The Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. These people aren't doctors. They seem to be criminals. So anyway, but that investigation is running. Meanwhile, I'm being attacked like all other investigators in this topic. So anyway, so this is just to let you know that, yes, things are forthcoming. Next week, there will be some big announcements, and I'll try to do my best. Meanwhile, I'm being mutilated. My tissue is being hammered to pieces with, as far as I can tell, with really hard pulses, very hard beat that just drums your tissue. And after a while, after several hours of this, your tissue swells up. My colleague Melanie Richan, who's being tortured by, Jacques Racer's Belgian intelligence in Brussels, she also gets the swollen legs, and many other victims have reported horrific swelling to the face and other things. So that's what we're dealing with. If there's anybody out there who's in intelligence and knows how to have these fucking Nazis shut down, then please get going. If you're on the inside, you have to shut down on the inside. If you're on the outside, you have to help us get funding, you have to help us get lawyers, and you have to help to get us publicity in the ear of politicians, because this bullshit is just insane. So we're running, we as society, the intelligence agencies are running open individual concentration camps where they're mutilating people to death. So anyway, I've got to go to bed. It's now 2 a.m. in the morning, and I have a lot to do tomorrow. So to all victims, please stay tuned. To all of our supporters, I'm sorry, that's the only thing I can say for now. To all other investigators, please get on the case and please help us, because we can't do it on our own. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Catherine Horton, and I'm signing off from the concentration camp in Zurich. Bye for now.